Well, U.S. Deputy CEO 6 years ago led an extraordinary business trip to Juba, South Sudan, to assess the possibility of opening up a branch there to serve the Sudanese region. The investment case, as you saw it then, take us back a bit.
Yeah, KCB ventured in the Sudan market way back in 2005, 2006, and this was a time when the country had just emerged from a long period of war, and so not many people were keen on doing business with Sudan, but we did see the opportunities at the time. The potential in Sudan is great, and therefore we went in and were in fact the first international bank to go into Southern Sudan, setting up in Juba and in Rumbek. And so over the last 5 years, 4 or 5 years, we've been doing business there. We haven't regretted the original decision. And in fact, as the economy and the infrastructure has improved, more investors have come into the country. And so with the dawn of the new country of Southern Sudan following the referendum, I think the outlook is great for that country, and we're actually happy that we were pioneers in this state in terms of international investors.
How do you see this picture shifting now if South Sudan is declared the newest country on the African continent?
What I see is that some of what have been sort of impediments to accelerated growth in the country will be cleared. As you know, over the last couple of years, there have still remained sanctions on Sudan by the US. I see that with time these are going to fall off. The fact that the South has been a window of the North to a large extent means that they could not probably move as fast as they wanted to with regard to setting up legislation, managing their own budgets and the economy, and running some of their sort of programs and policies the way that the population of Southern Sudan may have wanted. And I see that with them becoming independent, they will now be able to do some of the things that they couldn't do before. If you look at banking, for example, although there is a central bank in Southern Sudan, the Bank of Southern Sudan is actually a window of the Bank of Sudan. And therefore, today we look at some of the instruments in which people would like to invest, like sort of treasury bills and bonds and other government paper. They don't exist in the South. And therefore, the opportunity that this opens up is that both from a political and from an economic perspective, we can see that the South can now begin to chart out its destiny.
So let's take a look at KCB's position within that context then, and how, what kind of business model you're looking at adopting within this scenario moving forward, of course, without giving too much of your strategic and your competitive edge away.
Well, we are a large retail bank. As you know, in the East African region, we are the largest retail bank by assets. Assets in excess of $3 billion and branch network in excess of 215, 220 branches across the region. And this is a model that we have moved to Southern Sudan with. Today we have 16 branches in Southern Sudan with a potential to grow. We are represented in each of the 10 states, and therefore we see ourselves very much as facilitating investment in that country, facilitating transactions among the public sector, the private sector, and the population. And so going forward in the new world, we will continue with that model. We'll be looking for opportunities. We do know that the market is going to attract many people coming through, and so we are positioned there to meet the demands of banking services that come with a new economy, a new country.
Well, so what we're looking at here most effectively is broad-based involvement in this economy and a growing economy, where we are looking, though, at a cash-based economy more than anything else. So what's the status when it comes to opening up credit facilities and credit lines to kind of stimulate this growth moving forward?
Well, it's early days, and what we've got to do is there's a phase of education. I think we've got to sort of continue to talk about our products and services to a population which perhaps have not been used to a banking culture. In fact, if you look at most of Africa, the banked population still remains very, very low, and so in Southern Sudan it's probably even much lower. And therefore, one role that KCB will play is to really try and transition that from a cash economy to an economy that has got confidence in banking, that understands banking, that appreciates the fact that development will only accelerate if people have access to loans, and therefore we'll be working closely with the government with regard to the rules and regulations that, that govern lending, the collateral framework in terms of securities that banks would take to give out loans, and also just sort of ensuring that loans, when they are taken, get repaid, looking at the various economic sectors and the social sectors, which ones will be spurring growth and which ones need what kind of financial support. So we see ourselves as playing a big role in that whole area of moving the banking activities to the next level.
In the meantime, while we wait for that development of a proper regulatory framework, what kind of risk, how are you weighting the kind of risk you're taking on moving more aggressively into this space?
Well, we've got a fairly robust risk management framework, and over the last 4 years we have, of course, been lending money to different sectors of that economy. Some of the Sudanese diaspora that are returning home now, or that do have assets outside Sudan that act as collateral. The government has moved over the last 4 years to strengthen the company's registry and the lands administration, and therefore there is, in a sense, some aspects of a lending framework in place, but this cannot support an accelerated growth in the economy, and therefore we'll be working with government to see what else needs to be done to support this.
Well, certainly a favourable positioning has been the one that you have assumed with the government of South Sudan, where it's even appointed KCB as its sole tax collection agent. What other opportunities are being explored in terms of public-private partnerships at this stage?
There is a lot of opportunities because, as you know, this is a young state, and the demand for financing services and for partnerships between private and public sector are immense. If you look at the infrastructure sector, if you look at the education and sort of health sector, if you look at the industrial base, agriculture, and so and even if you just look at the public sector itself and what the demands of the public servants are going to be to help develop that country. And so, with regard to partnerships, I see lots of partnerships being created across all these sectors, where the private sector can provide a much greater level of development and initiative. They will do that where government is needed, particularly in the area of providing an enabling environment through laws and legislation, speeding up the bureaucracy so that it doesn't hinder the acceleration of the growth by the private sector. These are all areas of partnership that we see going forward, and certainly, where there were sanctions before, we see that the government should act quickly to get some of these removed so that people don't remain in a state of fear with regard to going in there. The areas around issues around security and what role the private sector can play. So these are all big issues that are going to be dealt with. And of course, always, one of the underlying factors is that people look for is political stability, and therefore, as investors in that country, we are looking forward to a period of smooth transition and political stability thereafter.
We've seen a possible headwind crop up this morning. Of course, we've heard North Sudan could drop the Sudanese pound and its currency after the South declares independence. And, in the run-up to this, we heard that it was potentially going to be a disruptive move of introducing that own currency. To what extent do you see this posing a challenge if it does follow through on that?
It is actually a challenge, and it has been a challenge. I mean, we've seen periods where there's been almost complete unavailability of dollars in that market, depending on what policies are being pursued by the North. And so I think if that were to happen, then it's probably, the South would have to have a fallback position in terms of maintaining stability in its own economic activity. So I think we've got to wait and see what happens there and how the central bank in the South will then move to manage it. One of the positive things has been that the South has gotten a lot of international support, and therefore I would expect that this would come to play to ensure that the young economy does not, is able to move forward.